So the place to start with financial aid at any school, no matter where you go, is the FAFSA. It's the free application for federal student aid, and it is the main application that most schools use, including the King's College, to help determine what type of need-based aid that students are eligible for. So most of you, I'm hoping, have already done this for this next year. And if you haven't, there's still time to do it. The FAFSA gives us one specific number. You put a lot of information in, gives us one specific number called the EFC, Expected Family Contribution. And it's a way to give schools an idea of what the students and families' resources are, financial resources are, for sending them to school. So your EFC is the same no matter if you are going to the state school in the next town over, or if you come to the King's College in New York City, your EFC is still going to be the same. Okay. How do you complete it? If you haven't done it, of course, there's an app. Like they say, there's an app for everything. You can also just go to fafsa.ed.gov. And you can fill it out there. Just keep in mind you're using information from 2 years ago, so your 2018 tax return info. And then while you're doing that, if you've already done it, you can use the IRS data retrieval tool to import the tax information, because that gives us the most accurate information possible. This is a little financial aid 101. This is a formula that any school that uses the FAFSA and federal student aid utilizes in how we're required by the DOE to award financial aid and need-based aid. So you start with the cost of attendance, which is the number, the amount it costs for tuition, fees, living expenses, books, transportation, everything is included in that. And then we'll take your expected family contribution, the EFC, and we'll subtract that, and we get what's called original financial need. The goal then, or the hope is that schools, between the school and between federal and state aid, will be able to meet that financial need. It's not always possible, but it does happen. But if it doesn't happen, then what we have left is a remaining unmet need, which is where things like loans, payment plans, outside scholarship, all kinds of other things will come into play for that remaining need. Or part-time jobs, that's a great way also to help cover that remaining need. So let me talk to you a bit about government aid. That's the kind of aid that gets awarded first. It's based off of your information on the FAFSA. And there's two federal grants that we can award to students. There's the Pell Grant, and then there's the FSEOG grant. The Pell Grant was designed probably back in the 70s, I think, to help give money to the students that needed it the most. So in order to be eligible for the Pell Grant, you need to have an EFC, so that's the expected family contribution, of $5,711 or less. So it just is awarded out on a prorated basis. So if your EFC is 0, you're going to get the max award, which is $6,345. If your EFC is $5,711, you'll get the minimum award, which I want to say is somewhere around $925. And then there's just a range in between of all the different amounts based on your EFC. The FSEOG is a little bit different. It is the Department of Ed gives schools one lump sum of money in this grant, and we get to award it to students. The only requirement is that those students must be Pell eligible. So we give these out to the students that apply earliest and first, and we start with the students that have 0 EFCs. And then if we have any left over, we move on from there and award that to other students. The other type of federal aid that you're going to see, and yes, they do call loans aid in the federal world. So students, if you complete the FAFSA, you're automatically eligible for the Stafford loan. So you're going to get, you'll get that as well. You can see the interest rates there. The other thing that you would be eligible for is the Parents for a Parent Plus loan, which is a loan through the Department of Ed. Parents, you do have to do an application for that. It's not automatic, so there is an application for that. But you can also see the fixed interest rate there as well. All of these loans also have origination fees on them, so keep that in mind as well. So I think next, we'll talk about New York State aid. If we have anyone on here from New York State, we have the tuition assistance program. If you are a New York State resident, typically you can complete this application at the end of your FAFSA. And then there's our school code. You'll see that there. There's also ETA, which is Enhanced Tuition Awards, which is a separate application. If you're interested in that, just reach out to us and let us know. We can let you know how to apply for that. They only make the application available at certain times of the year. Okay, moving on. I'm going to try to move through this fairly quickly just to keep it brief, but the different types of institutional aid that are most common for our students is the Presidential Scholarship is the first one. And it's going to be based on academic merit. So GPA, test scores, everyone that applies to the King's College is going to qualify for a Presidential Scholarship. And it is a 4-year scholarship. So you'll get that all 4 years that you're at King's. We also have our King's Grant, and this is our based award. And we do use the FAFSA to determine what this amount will be. So you do have to complete a FAFSA to see if you'll be eligible for this. Not everybody that completes the FAFSA is eligible for it, but a certain population of students are. We also have, just to mention, a legacy scholarship. So that means that if you have a grandparent, parent, or sibling that currently attends or graduated from the King's College, it can even be the old King's version from back in the day before it was in New York City. Let your counselor know, and we would be glad to give you that legacy scholarship. We also have a church matching scholarship. This is actually one of my favorites because what's great is that King's will match up to $1,500 your church gives you in a scholarship. So it could be a church or a ministry, like anything that's a 501c3 nonprofit. And we will match up to $1,500. So that's always a bonus for students. So let me go through now the numbers. When I talk about cost of attendance, this is what I'm talking about for the King's College. So you can see our tuition, housing, that fees means our student activity fee, and then Timely MD is a health service mandatory for all students. So there you're going to have, those are direct expenses that would be paid directly to King's. And then down below, you're going to see what we call indirect expenses. So food, books, transportation, and miscellaneous. Those are all things that obviously are going to be part of going to King's, but you don't pay those to King's. Those are on your own. As you learned, our apartments all have kitchens, so you'll be doing your own cooking and grocery shopping, buying your own food, and that sort of stuff. So those are estimates. You actually have control over those numbers. Those are just some suggestions on what we think, on what a typical student will spend. So, sorry, I did just figure out how to look at the TAP questions. So thanks, Isis, for pulling that in. So yeah, so this is the overall total. Now keep in mind, you're not going to be paying the full sticker price because you will all have a scholarship at a minimum, and probably a lot of other aid in there as well. I'm going to grab this question here from Kiara that says, is TAP only applicable if students' parents are from New York State? You know what? That's a really good question, Kiara. I think if you are a New York State resident, I'd have to look into that, but reach out to us and we can let you know. We'll dig into that for you. Okay, let's move on to different ways that people cover outside of the scholarships, federal and institutional, that families use to cover the remaining balance. So we have a payment plan system through a company called Tuition Management Systems. You can see the website there. You can basically break up your remaining balance in between 5 or 4 month plans per semester. So we do it per semester. So it could technically be 10 per year, or you could do 8 per year. They are interest-free payments. There is a one-time setup fee each semester, I believe, of $45. At least that's what it was this last year. We would send you out the statements by June 15th. And payments usually begin in July. And then if you're doing the 5 months, and then you would have access, or you would have the option to choose either the 1st or the 15th of the month as your payment date. And so it would just break it up into even payments, and then you'd be all paid off by the end of the semester. We also have a website called Elm Select that allows you to compare outside lenders and rates. It's an application, a credit check, all of that sort of stuff. So there's one website. It shows the various lenders that work with Kings, and you can compare and contrast all the different types of loans that are available. There's both an option for student loans and parent loans in this private sector. So you can see here's a few examples of some of the companies that work with us. We also have some of the newer ones on there now, such as SoFi, College Ave, things like that. So those will all be available to students and parents as well. And just to give you a few other scholarship ideas, if you're looking for outside scholarship ideas, you can ask your high school guidance counselor. That's a great place to start. They should have a lot of those coming across their desks, the different scholarships. You can use search websites such as Zinch, FastWeb, CapEx. Those are large and have a large number of scholarships in them, so maybe a little bit overwhelming. But could be worth the time. And then another really great thing though is local businesses. When it comes to outside scholarships, I think the best way to go is to stay local in your community where companies and businesses know you. I think you're much more likely to get one of those scholarships than on a national scholarship website like Zinch or FastWeb. You can look into military service organizations. We do also have a partnership with Fordham Army ROTC if anyone is interested. Employers, what I mean by that is your parents' employers. Sometimes their companies will also have scholarship applications or scholarship programs for students. And any service clubs, you see some over there on the side, the Rotary Club or Key Club or things like that. I know this was a long time ago, but I got a few scholarships from service clubs like that when I went to school. So those are also options. I just want to give you some of the helpful websites. You can also find these on our website too at tkc.edu. But again, federal student aid, this is where you can complete the FAFSA, is at fafsa.ed.gov. If you want more information about grants and loans through the Department of Ed, you can do that as well at studentaid.ed.gov. And then just a few more scholarship websites that are options as well for you. So your next steps, I do see a quick question here about GI Bill Yellow Ribbon. Yes, I can definitely answer those. I probably won't do it here. Maybe we could set up a time to talk later or like early next week to talk about how all of that works. But I'll definitely be happy to talk to you about that. So next steps, if you are definitely interested, you can set up a time to walk through, if you've received your award letter, to walk through that with us. You can see an email address there, myself, and then ISIS that you saw before are happy to do that with you. Your counselors also have a lot of knowledge about the financial aid system and how that works. So you can always ask them as well, or they can connect you with us. But there's our email address. If you haven't received an award letter yet, that's likely probably because we don't have your application or test scores or everything that we need. So just connect with your counselor if you'd like to get an award letter and see what that would look like. You can submit your enrollment and housing deposit. So this is how you let us know that, yes, I think King's is awesome and it's for me and I want to come to King's. So you submit your enrollment deposit first. That lets us know that you want to come to King's in the fall. And then you can do your housing deposit as well. That lets us know you want a spot on campus and we will reserve it for you. Our next round of housing placements is the end of April. I think the deadline for those housing applications and deposits is the 27th, and then the decisions will be handed out on the 28th. I think those are the details there. After all of that, you'll need to accept your aid in your student portal, which you will get after you've deposited. So we will end up putting that aid. The aid isn't showing in the student portal just yet, but it will be there very shortly within a matter of a couple of weeks. And you can go in there and accept all your aid. And I think that that's it as far as it goes for financial aid. I thank you so much for joining us in this and putting up with me in my first virtual financial aid seminar. It looks like we're returning soon. I'm getting a note from Grace in about 4 minutes. So maybe I can try and answer some questions here for everyone. And Isis, if you want to jump in too with any of the questions, feel free to turn your video on and mic and answer questions. Isis also happened to be a former student at King's, so she's very familiar with all of this as well. I see that Olivia is asking us what % of the student body work part-time. I don't know if I have a percentage, but I would get a sense that it's definitely over 50%, for sure, maybe 60%. Isis, do you have more of a sense for that?
Yeah, so I would say the majority of our students actually work. It's very common for a lot of the female students will babysit, which is a great option. And we actually have a Facebook group called TKC Babysitters, where you can find like great babysitting gigs. It normally pays more than minimum wage. That's a great option and it's very flexible. And yeah, I would say for the most part, most students will work part-time. So that's a great option to like cover your indirect expenses and living expenses.
Yeah. Yeah, so a majority of our students, I would say, probably do work. And then at some point, also internships come into play as well. Students will do those as well. Those aren't always they're not always paid. So students will often do an internship and work a part-time job. but I do know that a majority of our students do tend to work. What's pretty common is for students to work for their living expenses, to use that for food and MetroCard and other types of things like that that you're going to need just to be in the city, just to do life there. So that would be that's something that a lot of students do.
Yeah. And I would say it's very doable to do like anywhere from 10 to 15 hours part-time work while doing full-time schooling. And the minimum wage here in New York City is $15 an hour. So you can definitely make enough to cover some of your indirect expenses.